anything. Aw, come on, really? That's just disgusting.
Well, Cyberpunk 2077 is finally here. After 8 years of waiting, it definitely stirred up a storm upon release. Unfortunately, it wasn't all that positive. Problems after problems left some asking if it was really worth the wait. I'm gonna give my opinions on the game and try to answer that question. Minor spoilers from the game ahead. In the background, I'm gonna be drawing Ciri because ever since this,
people there had metal in their heads, waged war from a distance, using things similar to megascopes.
And the teaser trailer, I wanted to draw her with the mantis blades in that cyberpunk aesthetic. The anticipation surrounding Cyberpunk 2077 before release was so ungodly high that it was starting to make even Mount Everest feel a bit insecure. But it's not like you could really blame us. With the massive success of The Witcher 3, a game that even after all these years can still compete with most highly acclaimed games in recent memory, forget being a cowboy or a god of war, try being a Witcher. With the sole mission to sleep with anything that moves. Which is completely understandable. Also, you have to look for Ciri. Personally, The Witcher 3 is the first game that I truly became invested in the story. I was engrossed by the world and thought the characters were really interesting. It had great main missions and complex side quests.
Lost your key, ma'am?
No, not me key. Me pan.
After putting in over 100 hours into the game, it left me wanting more from this world. Well, thank you. Although the game was great, what was really refreshing to the community was CD Projekt's Red attitudes toward the gamers. Unlike other developers at the time, CD Projekt Red seemed to actually care about the community. Free add-ons to the game and 2 fantastic DLC expansions worth every penny, CD Projekt Red not only earned the video game community's respect, it left them anticipating what came next. After their first teaser trailer, every little bit of information, and the developers teasing exciting features, the hype surrounding the game started to grow. Then came 2019's E3 Xbox conference. The king had arrived.
You're breathtaking!
Keanu Reeves being revealed to be playing a major role in Cyberpunk 2077 left us wanting to get our hands on the game as soon as possible. Then, the delays were announced. Although most people could understand that such a massive game would need time to be polished, when we finally got our hands on the game, after all this time, it should have been perfect, right? The best analogy to Cyberpunk 2077's launch I could think of was, imagine if your boss told you to bake a cake, but your boss takes your cake before you could finish it because of money. You end up with a poorly decorated cake that needed more time to complete. If the rumors are true, that is what happened to Cyberpunk 2077. The publishers pushed CDPR to meet a deadline, so they were forced to release a game that wasn't finished. People running it on last-gen hardware had it the worst. You were in store for a blurry, glitchy mess that was more likely to crash 5 seconds after opening the game. I started playing the game at launch on a PC with last-gen hardware. Although it was running the game, I was having troubles with frame drops and textures not loading. I had to move up my own time schedule and upgrade my PC to play the game properly. I joined the next-gen consoles and PC gamers and started running the game with no real issues. I was able to experience Night City in its full glory. There were still bugs and glitches, but most game-breaking ones were taken care of in subsequent patches. The real problem was the game wasn't even supposed to be a next-gen exclusive. It was only optimized for next-gen, which meant they sold the game that couldn't run properly on last-gen hardware. While I started to enjoy my time in Night City on my upgraded PC, others who bought a copy on last-gen hardware were ripped off. CDPR did later offer refunds, but the damage had already been done. With all the problems and the bugs surrounding the game, what came to a bigger shock to people was how much was cut from the game. Features that CD Projekt Red had promised and even showed off in gameplay and demos were non-existent. Nobody was more excited of the idea of crawling around on the ceiling using the mantis blades to stalk my enemies.
Not
scientifically possible!
It was not the game we expected, and with a rough launch, Cyberpunk 2077's reception wasn't all that positive. That leaves the question, is Cyberpunk 2077 a bad game? Cyberpunk 2077 is a first-person open-world RPG with V as the playable character. The first thing you do is choose your gender, looks, and life path. I don't recommend spending too much time on your looks, as this is a first-person game and you don't ever really get to look at your character except in the menus and the occasional cutscene. The game offers you 3 life paths. You have your Nomad, Corpo, and Street Kid. Your life paths don't affect the main story, but you will get additional dialogue options every once in a while referencing your life path. Each life path gives you a different prologue to the main story, but you will always end up meeting Jackie, the best of all friends. V and Jackie are trying to make it into the big leagues of the mercenary business. They get a job from a fixer, Dexter Deshawn, to get the Relic, a chip developed by the Arasaka Corporation, a worldwide mega corporation with one of the most powerful armed forces in the world. They sneak into the Arasaka building and get their hands on the Relic when shit hits the fan, and Jackie is fatally wounded. As they make their escape, the Relic's container is damaged, forcing V to use her cyberware to house the chip. V is the only one to make it out of this mission alive, but Dexter Deshawn, trying to tie up loose ends, shoots V and leaves her in a dump. The Relic saves V, but with the side effect of having her brain overwritten by our Lord and Savior a long dead rocker boy named Johnny Silverhand. The rest of the main story unfolds as you try to remove the Relic before V is erased. On my first playthrough, I went with the Street Kid life path, and enjoyed the prologue to the main story. I still haven't played through the other life paths, so I can't really comment on them. I can say I thought the main story really satisfying to play through. It did a good job at keeping me interested in what was happening and never left me bored. I like seeing V and Johnny's relationship grow throughout the story, from bitter enemies to partners. Aside from the main missions, you spent a lot of time doing side missions. I break up the side missions into 3 categories: story missions, gigs, and errands. Story missions follow side characters and their storylines. Most of the story missions I played through had interesting storylines with a few duds. The 2 most memorable side stories were the Crucifixion and the Politician. The first involves you meeting a murderer who believes he's the second coming of Christ. He wants to crucify himself with the help of a studio who plans to help him distribute the recording. As the story unfolds, you see that he feels true remorse for his actions and is seeking salvation, but the studio is just exploiting him for profit. I decided to help him go through with it when he asked me, but I felt dirty after the fact. I wonder why. The latter side quest involves helping a politician running for mayor who plans to take on corruption. You find out he has made some dangerous enemies who prefer to pull the strings from the shadows. Through your investigation, you find out that he is secretly being monitored and brainwashed into their political puppets. Things get more intense when they threaten you to drop the investigation as you get close. It reminds me of tactics companies use nowadays to sway your opinions through subliminal messaging, but taken to 11. It made me real paranoid for a couple of days. Other side quests you can pursue involve the characters you can romance. They each have their own storylines you should definitely pursue. Fair warning though, the ability to sleep with them will be locked off depending on your gender. Choosing to play as a male means you can romance Panem or Carrie, while female V can romance Judy or Ward. Their storylines can be completed regardless of your gender, but they will reject any advances and lock you out of their final sex scene. That ruined my original plan to follow in Geralt's footsteps and sleep with anything that moves. Aside from the story-based side quests, you have gigs. Fixers all over Night City will hit up V to offer her jobs. Or more likely try to get you to buy another car. Seriously, it was annoying just driving around Night City and getting calls from these guys trying to unload a car on you. Gigs will be your primary source of income, and I found these jobs to be really fun to play through, but at times can get a little repetitive. Unfortunately, CD Projekt Red seems to have taken a page from Ubisoft and made a bunch of copy and paste missions. They are really just errands you run around to earn XP and can get really repetitive. They aren't that much different from each other aside from their location and difficulty. Fortunately, the gameplay allows these missions to be a fun distraction. Cyberpunk 2077's gameplay reminds me of Deus Ex Machina. Oh wow, who would have guessed? Yes, it does share some DNA with the Deus Ex games. You focus on leveling up attributes to unlock skills. Through this system, you can customize V to fit your playstyle. Strike from the shadows! Make V a gun-blazing character focusing on performing gun kata by putting your points into speed and strength, or you can play as a Netrunner, a stealth build focusing on hacking your way through the environment and taking your opponents down from the shadows. Don't forget, Cyberpunk 2077 takes place in the future where cyberware is common. I played mostly as a Netrunner, focusing on remaining undetected, and in the beginning I ended up actually neglecting the cybernetics.
I know better now.
Installing cyberware can provide tech upgrades and combat enhancements. I recommend investing in leg upgrades as they help with traversal around the map and open up new opportunities for infiltration. A good operating system will also help as it will provide you with more RAM and more hacking slots. In my opinion, Cyberpunk 2077 had really good gameplay. The gunplay was pretty satisfying with the variety of weapons offered. I do wish the melee combat system was better. It feels like it was trying to be more complex, hand-to-hand system, but never got around to finishing it. The hacking system involves infiltrating systems, and while in combat you can just quick hack, this made running a stealth build really fun, but the AI did feel a little dumb at times. Then again, it made my approach to stealth a lot more fun. Haha, no one can report the bodies if there's no one left! Overall, after putting in 50 plus hours into the game, finishing the main storyline along with most major side quests, I have to say this game is actually pretty solid. While it's not a game that should have been released on last gen hardware and should have been a next gen exclusive, on next gen hardware you get to experience Cyberpunk 2077 how the developers intended. Glitches are still a problem, but they are getting patched. It has a good main story with interesting characters who they themselves have interesting side stories. I liked the gunplay and thought the hacking was passable. The cyberware mixed up the gameplay by giving you certain advantages, while the hand-to-hand combat did leave much to be desired. I'd recommend this game to anyone who had an interest in the cyberpunk genre and had next-gen hardware. Cyberpunk 2077 may not have been the game I was expecting. Even with all the mistakes they made, I think this game was actually worth the wait.
Wake the fuck up, samurai.
This video took me a long time to make, but it was fun to talk about a game I liked. I've been trying to learn more of a semi-realistic anime style and combining it with a background, so I like the way this piece turned out. Like and subscribe if you are so inclined, and check out my Instagram for more art. Let me know down in the comment section below who you like best, Panem or Judy. I'm thinking about drawing one of them next and I need something to sway my opinion. Thanks for watching and I'll see you next time. Peace.